Let's give a hearty welcome to Tom Diaz. Hello, Tom.
Hello, thank you very much, Lisa, and thanks those of you who came out in this prelude to this storm. I feel a little bit like an imposter because, as Lisa said, I'm not really an educated artist, and I don't really haven't sold any of my art, but I'm happy to share it with you. So I'm going to start the picture you see there on the opening is something I did a series of artworks about various psalms, and that's Psalm 180 from the Hebrew Bible. But one of my favorite. There we go. Okay,
Okay, that's
so now
good.
I got control again. This is my very
Okay,
favorite
great.
painting. It hangs in my office. I can look up and see it right now. And it came to me in a dream. I literally had a dream that if you could see this, you could see this like a female figure in here who was this fount of creation. And you can see the metaphors here, the stars coming out, and then as things cool down, you get plants and mountains and so forth. And there's an alligator down here or a crocodile or something. But I love this painting, and like I say, it's my favorite. It's rather large. It's 2 feet by 4 feet. I did it on oil. On plywood with a gesso ground, of course, for those of you who know about that kind of thing. And then this is appropriate because we're having a blizzard tomorrow. And I painted this on oil. You don't worry too much about some of the symbolism. I was much younger when I did this. But this was after an actual blizzard I think in 1986. You can see outside there's the snow, and I just was really wanted to do a still life that captured the feeling of cold and some visual effects. All these other things were stuff that I had around I was single then. I was called Glover Park Man. I lived up in Glover Park, and these are various objects that I had around. I was into sort of African art at that time. Um, Now I'm going to show you some what I call pretty please. These are in other words, they're not bizarre or um, difficult, which you'll see a bit later on. Some of my stuff is, I don't know, a little weird. So these are just nice. And this is part of a series I did on nightfalls, seasonal nightfall. So this is a spring nightfall. Um, and I also wanted to try out, excuse me, to me, gouache is a challenging medium, so I wanted to try that out. And I did, this is spring nightfall. And then I sort of like the next one is summer nightfall. I try to convey the feeling of the heat here and then the cool of the night, and of course the moon. So that was that. These are rather small. The winter nightfall goes back a little bit. Excuse me. My mother was Russian of heritage. My grandparents were from Russia. And so I wanted to capture a little bit of that. The winter in Russia, here's a guy on a sled or somebody on a sled with dogs. And then down here are the ever-present wolves. So it's a feeling that I wanted to get of a little bit of suspense or mystery. Is there anybody in the waiting room?
Not that I can see.
Okay.
Okay, I'm watching.
Okay. And this is just a delightful little thing. A couple doors down from me, there is a neighbor has a plant called a Spanish bayonet. I don't know how often it blossoms like this. I don't think very often because I haven't seen it since. But this was, I guess, right about the time of COVID or right before COVID. And my ultimate objective on this one was I wanted to do a block print in colors. So this is actually, it was like a working idea, and I have carved out a block that has all of the
Uh,
foliage, but I haven't gotten beyond that to actually do it. Maybe I can get to that. There's so many things to do in life. Now I'm going to start showing you some of the mysterious stuff that I warned you about. Um, this is called The Visitor. There was a period of time, this is one of the studio courses I took. I love to do etchings, and this has aqua tint is this. You see this sort of gray, grainy area. That's a different process than the just etching that you actually do, where you do this in a metal plate. But again, sometimes I like to have ambiguity in what I'm showing. So what's going on here? If you look down here, there's one light on in this town. Everything else is dark. And I wanted to sort of, my father was born in a little tiny village in one of the islands of the Canary Islands. So I sort of had that on my mind. Um, and then you don't know, is he pointing down, getting permission, or is he telling whatever this religious figure is here, it's obviously a church or cathedral that, okay, I'm taking, I don't know. But I like doing this. It was fun. It's a lot of work in those of you who know about etching. This next one, again, you'll have to forgive me. I did it when I was younger. It's a little bit, some people might say, risque. And I just call it phallic wave. The thing I liked about this and the process that I enjoyed is this is actually done on just a plexiglass. When you do actual etching, you have to grave the metal, put a ground on it, and put it through acid and all. When you do etching on plexiglass, you just have a sharp point, and then you do all the incisions that you need to make the drawing, and then you can just do the same thing that you would do with a metal plate. You don't have to use acid. It's much more accessible if you don't have a studio. So this thing is full of symbolism. You can figure it out for yourself. And this is another, it's untitled. I thought about maybe calling it Adam and Eve. I don't know. Um, and this, again, it's like I was trying out lino cut, which is you take linoleum, in a linoleum block. You can buy it, it's already mounted on wood, as those of you who are artists know. And then you just carve out the high part is where you want the ink. And so this is obviously a struggle between the masculine and a feminine figure. And I don't know what the hell it means. I had a lot of fun doing it. It could be considered to be sort of global. This is the way men and women relate, or it could be, historical Adam and Eve. I don't know. But I'm only showing you the stuff that I'm not showing you the stuff I don't like. And this was one of a series I did about, I just called them moon rises, like I did the sunsets. And this was actually inspired by, I just saw this training bike laying not in the road, but, next to it. And I wondered, what the heck is that about? Was somebody's kid just leave it there? So again, this is this element of not really sure what this means. And it is done in watercolor on the appropriate kind of painting. Now, these are more or less, I wouldn't say they're necessarily political statements, but they're statements about my point of view about things. And this is one of the earliest screen prints I did. I can't believe how long ago I did this, but it was inspired by the sort of oppressive governments going on in this case in Central America, and it has several themes that I tried to unify with this slash of sunset or what have you. You see this sort of peasant person has their hat in hand because they don't want to diss the military in the truck. And if you look very closely, you can see it looks like a body in there and a soldier armed. And course, the power of the church and institutions. So that was just kind of, like I say, it's a statement about how I saw those governments. And then I actually went down and spent a month in Central America during the period, of the Contras and all that. And wandered around and saw different things. And I came back and did this etching. It's called Tres Hermanos, which is three brothers, because there were brothers in any kind of civil war, whether it's the Irish, the American, you name it. Families end up fighting each other. So I've got one brother here you can see who is passed on deceased, and then the other two brothers, and various obvious symbolism. A terrible time in those countries, and I tried to capture some of that there. And this is that peaceful demonstration that happened on January 6th in 2021 when the Scorpions visited the Capitol and because they wanted better conditions. This is done on scratchboard, which is fun because it gets the effect. You can sort of get the effect of an engraving or a block print. Really, you get the effect of a block print. You just scratch off the parts you want dark. And so I wanted to make a statement about what I thought happened there, and this seemed to me to capture it. I do not know what this means. It's called blowback, and there's some elements that I definitely have. You see the people with torches, like maybe during the Inquisition, chasing this person, and I don't know whether this person over here with the gun is on the fugitive side or not. But to me, it doesn't really matter because I want people to figure it out for themselves. But what I really like about this piece, and the reason that it's here, is I like the contrasts, the dark, the black sky, and then light over here, and the shadows, the moonlight, the shadow here. I really liked doing that. And again, this is scratchboard. You just have a sharp, like an X-Acto knife. The board is dark, it's black, and then you scratch off the bar. Again, this is a model for I wanted to do a block print, a lino cut actually, and I've done the basic work. I just have to print it. I could make a series of those. This was inspired during the first wave of family separations. So this was done about 2021, 2020, I don't remember. And it's just, I used this image in some of my other work of this huddled family, a mother and a child, some armed person. This looks like a prison or a concentration. This was from the first administration and the separation of families, as was this. And this was inspired by a newspaper photograph I saw where this mother was crying because her child had been taken away from her. And it reminded me of those of you who know anything about, you know, uh, Catholic theology and music. The Stabat Mater is the image of the grieving mother at the cross, Mary. And so I tried to combine this into um, this one point. This is done with ink, and it's a special kind of ink. There's um, I can't remember the exact name of it. There's a commercial ink product it's almost it's almost solid, and then you play with it, and anyhow, that's what this is. This is a metaphor that for the justice system, justice just dust, and I was inspired by this by some time I spent as a lawyer representing indigent criminal defendants in the District of Columbia, and one of the convictions that I came away from is it's like people who, for whatever reason, fall into the criminal justice system are churned around. Some of them go to prisons. Some of them get various remedies other than prison, and then they're sent back out. And my point, I used to liken it to two hamster wheels. You're in a social hamster wheel at the top, where whatever it is, whether it's your addiction or your poverty or whatever causes you to get into crime, your mental state is not being dealt with. So you're thrown down into the system and then you're thrown back out. And it just kind of an endless cycle. I tried to capture that in this. And I don't know exactly all the different media that I used here. I'm sure there's some watercolor. Oops, sorry. Uh, Maybe some acrylic ink. Okay, so there's that. This is called the Apotheosis of the King of Toads, inspired by the fact that people like to toady up to strong men. And I mean, the symbolism here is fairly obvious with the different flags. The Roman fascist, that's where the term fascist comes from. It was a bundle of rods and a blade that was kept on I think, the rostrum of the Roman Senate. It was, so that's where fasces is where it comes from. And you can see different symbolic, the toads here bubbling in the, and apotheosis means, made into a god. So the king of toads is made into a god here. This is a very interesting psalm, Psalm 137, because it actually talks about smashing the heads of children. You wouldn't think you'd find that in a psalm, but it's about revenge for the Babylonian exile. So I thought it captured. This isn't about the Babylonian exile. This is about unbridled force that's applied in conflict. That's what this is about. And children are often the victim, as are um, civilians, innocents. And again, this is not gouache. This is something called acrylic gouache, which is a little different than regular gouache. And I did that. Okay, this is possibly, some of you will find this the most shocking. This covers a span of at least, I think, 30 years of work. I did this first one after I had made several visits to Russia. And I decided to do a series called Mother Russia. And originally, this is each one of these represents a period in the history, modern history of Mother Russia. So this is obviously the Stalinist period where Mother Russia is really butchered and in a brutal way. And then this next one, these are all the same size, by the way. They're all on canvas board and they're all done in oil, but I had to shrink them down to fit them into this display. And this is the period of the oligarchs, after um, Yeltsin and perestroika and all that. Then the oligarchs really took over Russia, and they consumed what had been the Russian state. They were greedy as wolves, and you can see the Russian cold here. I love that. And then the last one I did down here is sort of the Putin-esque Russia, where one of the things that Putin has done or did is harken back to some of the things that made Russians feel great in the Tsarist period. The church, for example. The communists suppressed the church, but he made it sort of a symbolic thing. And then you can see down here, this is actually an echo of a famous piece of Russian art where people are lined up um, in waiting lines to get into a grocery store. And I thought I'd just slip that in there. And this is a heroic piece of art that's in Moscow near Red Square. So anyhow, this is just supposed to be symbolic. Now Mother Russia is whatever Putin says it is. But this is a series of three. I kind of like them. And this is one of a series of oil paintings I had the apocalypse in mind, which comes in very different forms. I have one that's the environmental, and this one is the apocalypse of nuclear war. And again, it's sort of grim, but this is actually what a nuclear blast would probably do or look like. So there's that. Then the whole question, do we learn anything? Again, this is again one of my favorites. I call it the herd. And partly it's just oriented toward these shapes, but you can see these are people with their phones in their face and the reflection of the light from their phone. And then here are the visible regulators. But if you look way up here at the top, this is the figure in the tower, the person really controlling all of this. And then I wanted to harken back to the time of building of the Egyptian pyramids. And have we really learned? Have we really changed from sort of mass obedience? I don't know, but I like it. And this is very similar. It's called The Howling. I was inspired by a political convention. This is oil on a small board. And I tried to get the shape of a scorpion here. And then if you'll see, sometimes I slip this figure in, memento mori, remember death is always out there. But anyhow, this is just, people get so enthusiastic and they're shouting and screaming and pointing their fingers like daggers. And then there's whoever the person is and their toadies down here. So yes, this is commentary. And then when you reach a certain stage in life, you wonder, have you really learned anything? Is there anything to learn? And I love doing this. I call it in the garden of wisdom. And it's, an older person. Toward the end, you can see the various metaphoric symbols in here. Telescope, the candles burning down, somebody there waiting. We know who that is. And this person still seeking out wisdom, seeking to understand all of this. That's acrylics. Then I have two more that are the theme of exits. This is one of the earliest pieces I think I ever did. This is a drawing I did of my father, and then I did this painting in gouache. He was very ill. My father was a smoker all of his life. He ultimately died of emphysema and heart failure, and um, he also liked papayas. And there was a song we used to sing around our house because my mother was from Hawaii, and there was a song about Princess Papuli has plenty of papayas. Anyhow, so I just thought I'd slip that in the imagery of his cigarettes. This was not his literal deathbed, but he was very close to it. Then he went to the hospital, came home, and ultimately passed away. But so that was in honor of my father. And I also wanted to point out, you see, his name is Gregorio Adan y Diaz. Adan is really our family name. I should be named Adan, not Diaz, in the Latino way of naming, but in the throes of immigration, sometimes these things change. So I have all kinds of relatives in the Canary Islands whose name is Adan. But I wasn't I wasn't really sure about this, but I got to tell you that I was pleased when a person who I don't know personally, but somebody, I posted this on Facebook, and a woman whose mother had just died sent me a message. And she said she found this very comforting. It's just called Exit, and it's obviously an end of life thing, but the person is ending being greeted by someone. And so I wasn't sure even why I did this. But when that person sent it, I said, okay, that's worth doing if somebody finds some joy or whatever. So this is a self-portrait I did a couple of years ago. Everything comes out of our brain, reality, fantasy. And if you want to see my art, like I say, I don't sell it, but you can just go, it's very simple, tomdiazart.com. So here I am. Hey.
Great, Tom. That was really interesting to see. So
I'm glad you think so.
we have time for some questions or comments for Tom.
Or not. Get ready for the storm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, there was someone who asked if you could explain a little further. Stacy says you carve out the part that appears as white space in the linoleum and the other etching.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the way that, yes, whether it's etching or lino cut or wood block, whatever, the part that you want to be the ink to take is the risen part, and then the rest of it you scratch out. When you do an etching, it's a little bit different because in an etching the ink goes into the lines. But yes, basically for the wood cut and the lino cut, yes, it's black and white. You carve out, obviously doesn't get ink, and then you put ink on the block, and then you run it through a press. Ideally, you run it through a press. I mean, you could do it yourself, but
So
okay.
David has a question. Would you like to ask David?
Do we
Am
have
I
to unmute
audio?
them?
Yes,
Okay,
he
can
has.
you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Um, uh, do you start out with just doing some sketching and drawing to kind of refine what your final product is going to be, or do you just sort of have it in your head and then go for it?
No, for the most part, especially the more involved works, yes, I do sketches and in some cases because I want a certain geometric design, I might do that. And then in other cases, if I'm just really inspired, I might just go right to whatever it is I'm doing. Like I did one that I haven't shown you here about the latest armed people on the street. And that one I just sat down and did it because I was so, but yes, I think that's one thing I've taken several, like I took a studio course in printmaking and I took a studio course, probably the first course I ever took in oil painting. And I'm also a big believer in learning from books and nowadays YouTube. But all of I mean, I think the most serious things that I've learned, whether it's a book or a video or a piece of art, is it helps to have a plan and drafts and whatever. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, tell us a bit more with all that's going on in the world and our country at this moment. How much does that influence? How much do current events influence your work?
Well, I think it influences everything. I mean, I'm researching another book now that has to do with um, the so-called international law of conflict, and we thought after the Second World War we had trials in Germany, we had trials in Japan, and we set standards for how people should conduct themselves. And my working title is polite fiction because we don't really live by those rules. So yes, current events affects me, and I could get it and show you on a screen, but yes, I think all of us are affected. The one thing I do try to do though, and I read an article about this, especially for senior people, is try to get away from it. Try to get away from what's going on because the stress of thinking about current affairs, particularly now in this country in this time, is not good for your brain. Sometimes you just have to disconnect. So I try to do that too. But then what do I know?
Oh, right. You also have a lot of imagery dealing with death and the afterlife, other
Mhm.
dimensions.
Yeah, I find that I have I have several other oil paintings that this whole theme of you know, memento mori, which is means remember death. I mean, you have to think about it's not like morbid, oh, I think about death. It's that you have there's this wonderful um, scene in a British series called Silk, and it's about barristers in the British system. It's a great TV series. But the British have somebody who's like a managing partner, but not really. He's called a clerk. We would call it a clerk. And this person actually runs the show, even though he's not a lawyer. And there's a scene where he's talking to another young person, and he says, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, when you're born and when you come out of your mother, it's like you're shot out of a cannon and there's a wall 30 inches away. And the other guy says, sort of like, and what's your point? And he says, make every inch count. So that's what thinking about the fact that we are all mortal um, is about. It's about thinking about your life and being reminded of that. And also, I think it's a remedy for arrogance. No matter who you are, whether you're Donald Trump or Putin or you name the person, we all face the same fate. And so, what is it that we've left and brought to life? I'm not saying that I've done all that great, but I'm just saying that's the point of that kind of art. Is not just, oh, it's creepy. Although there is some attraction in creepy art, I will admit that.
And some of your work kind of brings to mind Dali and even Goya for me. Are you influenced in particular by any known artists, well-known artists from history?
It varies. It de depends on the time. Yes, I've been. I think. Well, what I like to say is that every artist. I don't care who it is. If it's somebody in a cave, drawing a hunt with every artist, every person who presumes to be an artist is trying to convey something. And then the question is, how well do they do it? And how do they do it? What's the language that they use? So yes, if you look at other artists, I have another painting that I guess it could be a Van Gogh. I didn't include in the script because I don't have give a good image of it. So I went through phases, and there are a couple of other artists who's, and I can't name them right now, but yeah, I think everybody is influenced by that. I hope they are.
So when you do the engravings on, what are the materials you engrave on? And then are you able to print multiples of it? Is that why you do it?
Yeah, yeah. So all the ones that are prints. I have, it depends, 4 or 5 copies. It's called an edition. And the thing about doing prints, which I like doing, is that to do it really well, you need a press, a mechanical press, because it's business of doing a roller, and then some people mash them out with hands. You can do that, but when your hands get a little bit arthritic, it's not as easy to do. So I don't do that much anymore. But yeah, you t if you for actual etching. You start with a metal plate. I think it's zinc, I can't remember. And then you scratch on it and you put a ground over it to protect the part you didn't. And then you run it in acid and then you do a test run. And then if you don't like that, you do it more. Whereas with lino cut or something that you cut away, you can't put it back. It's gone. So that's a different process. But yeah, it's all about, and that's where to Dave's question, planning is everything because you have to think this when I cut this piece out, I can't put it back in. So you have to know what you're going to do. So you do a drawing. Yeah.
Right. And did you self-teach? Are you self-taught on that medium on the carvings on lino, for example, or
Yeah,
did
the
you?
lino stuff. When I took the etching course, the person who had the press suggested that we could do without having to, because you with actual etching you have to use acid. I think they have another process now that doesn't use acid because then you have to have a place to put the acid when you use it. But if lino cuts and wood cuts are free of having to use the acid, wood cuts are very hard to do because the wood has to be just right. You have to be good at carving it. But yeah, um, I can't remember the question, but
Yeah, if you were self-taught on
oh, so yeah, I
lino.
did have some exposure to the whole
Mhm.
process of how the press works, whatever the particular technique you're using. So yeah, but then I just go off on my own and do it. I'm a big thing. Whatever your endeavor in life is, whatever you want to do, there's somebody who knows a lot more about it than you do. So, take a course or at least become friends with them and they can tell you, oh, this thing you're doing, don't do that. Like we have, in Silver Spring, there's a place called Docs in Progress. And one of the things I like to do is make little videos. And I took a week-long course there and I learned a lot about it. And one of the things was planning, have a script. I mean, I used to do videos, but I just sort of make them up as I go along. No, have a whole plan and then have a script that you actually are going to follow. It's a lot like a painting or any other piece of art.
Right. I took the course for arts administrators that they offered some years ago, documentary filmmaking.
Ah, yeah,
And
I'm a
I
big fan.
was mainly on sound. I was the sound person. And then I really enjoyed doing the editing
Yeah,
also.
I like to do editing, yeah. And now I have to say I resist. I know it's a big thing now, AI. Some people use it, some people don't. Um, I know there are routine things that it can help out a lot on, but I will never use it for my writing, or I use it for a little bit of research, but I don't use it for writing and I don't use it for any of my art.
Right. That question came up for me with my Peace Corps writers group last night.
Mhm.
Do you use AI at all to kind of refine your writing
I
or
don't, but I
get
mean,
over little
yeah,
hurdles?
I know people that do. I mean, I know people who use it, and it does have value. I'm not saying it's totally that value. Like in some of the research I'm doing, I'll just get a quick overview, but I don't trust any of that. Then you have to do the actual research yourself.
Hmm.
That's
Right.
yeah.
And what other, you said you took courses at Docs in Progress in downtown Silver Spring. What other local not arts organizations have you taken courses with?
None really. The only courses I took were some years ago, and they were workshop courses where a given artist, um, like a printmaker, that was how she got income. So that we had a class of two or three people, and we would go to her studio, and the same thing with the oil painting. So the only courses I've taken recently have been, well, not even recently. I went down to the Smithsonian. Yeah, the Smithsonian, I think, has some courses studio courses, but it's been a long time. Now I feel like if I want to do art, I know enough about the techniques, and then it's just a question of fiddling around with some things you still have to learn how to do properly. And if I need to know, I'll just either look in a book, which I'm inclined to do because of that's my background, or I go on YouTube. There's tons of information on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube is a great resource for teaching techniques,
Mhm.
different techniques, and I encourage you to join our tiny house building
It
class.
sounded very interesting, yeah. And I also the Arvo Part thing. It's one I
I
love
will
that.
bet. Yeah.
Yeah, I love his music, and it was funny when I saw that. I said, I have to see this. I have to.
And it's at 3 o'clock.
Yeah,
Most of our programs are at 7.
yeah. No, I'm
Um,
gonna. I I have that up. That's on my my feed for music. I occasionally
well,
listen to that. It's
yeah,
very
and he's
interesting music.
oh yeah, he's phenomenal. I've met him before.
Oh, you have?
I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Estonia, so I have a strong
Oh, yeah,
connection to Estonia.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I met him at the Kennedy Center. I got to go to a reception, and he was there many years ago. And I just met the graphic artist Jonas Sildre. And Jonas, it's funny, it really means like Jonas, but it's related to the word to draw in Estonian too. It's
Mm.
kind of Jonistama is to draw, which but I don't think that kind of was a prediction of his career, but it's kind of funny. Um, it would be
But
like a guy named Drew becoming a guy who draws, maybe.
yeah,
Um,
something that just sort of popped into my mind. You're asking about influences right now. There's a period in German art in the 1920s and 1930s. I'm thinking of Otto Dix and a few others, and I am a fan of that, and I'm inspired by that. And I think that does influence some of my commentary art because those people were um, straightforward about their criticism of what was going on at the time. And I think, you can do nice art or you can do art that has a message, and sometimes you can do both. But yeah, I recommend that for anybody who wants to see what an artist can do in a period like this. I can't remember the name. They had a name for that school, but obviously when the Nazis took over, they shut it down. But it's
right.
a
So the
fast
arts movement that was happening like in the 30s in Germany,
20s, from the 20s into,
20s and
because
30s.
a lot of these people were veterans of the First World War. They had seen what war really was,
Hmm.
and they were brutal in their graphic description of what was going on in Germany at the time because of the depression, inflation, poor veterans, people without legs, and then rich people smoking cigars. The imagery is it's stunning in its impact to me. So that period of time in German art, I have a couple of books that I look through.
Right. And Arvo Pärt's life is also impacted by the Nazis and then the
Yes,
Soviets. And it's
right.
kind of told in this graphic novel that Jonas will be presenting. So, right. Well, great. Well, this has been really a great program, Tom.
Well, thank you.
Always fun to chat with you and hear your more about your creative work. So we look forward to inviting you back for more talks about writing or creating art.
Whatever.
So,
It's fun to do, and I really appreciate those of you who came out. And I hope to see. I know some of you personally, and I'll see you soon, I hope.
yes, thank you
But
again.
everybody stay warm and be safe.